Blood Mountain is the highest peak in the Blue Ridge mountain range in Georgia. Despite the unsettling name, Blood Mountain is actually very popular with hikers. The Blood Mountain Wilderness Area spans over 7,800 acres and is known for its rugged terrain, variety of hiking trails, a rich biodiversity, and panoramic views of the surrounding mountain range. This beloved piece of the Appalachian Trail is where our story unfolds. "24-year-old Meredith Emerson set out for a hike up Blood Mountain, accompanied by her black Labrador retriever, Ella. It was a cold morning and it was early. Meredith put the hood of her blue sweatshirt over her head, but she had always enjoyed the crisp winter air and the serene beauty of the forest. As the fog cleared, streaks of sunlight peered from between the leaves. Ella, so full of energy, ran along the path in front of her human companion. Meredith likely felt a sense of peace and contentment, surrounded by nature and the companionship of her loyal dog. It was a beautiful day. It was the last time she was seen alive. As it was a popular trail, Meredith encountered a few other hikers on her walk. One of them, however, made her feel a bit uneasy. It was an older man who was walking a golden retriever. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s, wearing high-end hiking gear and carrying a police-style baton and bayonet knife. This man was Gary Michael Hilton, and he introduced his dog as Dandy. He had struck up a conversation with her using the dogs as a convenient icebreaker. They hiked together for a short period, but as he couldn't keep up with her pace, she eventually lost sight of him in the wilderness. Meredith continued along the trail, but she couldn't quite tell what it was about this person that stuck with her. Maybe it was the look in his eyes or the tone of his voice. He was friendly, and he hadn't given her any reason to think differently. It was just a guy on the trail. The beauty of nature and the relaxing walk were enough for her to soon forget the uncomfortable meeting she had earlier. She was back in her own world, as she was at the start of her walk. She had no idea she was being followed. She had no idea she would encounter Hilton a second time. Deciding it was time for her to head home, Meredith turned back down the trail. It wasn't long before she saw Hilton again, standing by the path. He appeared to be resting. No, he was waiting. She thought it would just be a quick interaction, just a goodbye as she made her way past him. But that's not what happened. Hilton blocked her path. She politely greeted him as she tried to move around him, but he blocked her path again.
What's this?
She realized what was happening when she saw that he had unholstered his knife. Hilton demanded her debit card and her PIN. Sensing that she needed to figure out a way out of the situation, Meredith looked for an opening to use her martial arts training to defend herself and escape. After all, Hilton was a 61-year-old man, and she was an avid hiker at just 24 years old. What she didn't know was that Hilton had been a paratrooper in the military. He still had the training that came with that part of his life. She attempted to fight him off while yelling for help, but he overpowered her, and with one hard punch to the face, he broke her nose and knocked her over. Blood streamed down her face and into her mouth. Meredith tried to get her footing, to fight for her life, but Hilton loomed over her, knife in one hand. In that moment, she saw him for what he was. Not just a thief, but a monster. A true monster who would kill her if she resisted. One swipe of that menacing knife is all it would take. Even if other hikers heard her screams, she'd be dead before they could get to her, and Hilton would have long disappeared into the sanctuary of the trees. She realized that for her to survive this encounter, she would have to be smart. She would have to be compliant. Hilton aggressively pulled Meredith to her feet and with the knife gestured that she go down a deviating path that she hadn't noticed before. Trying to keep the blood spurting out of her nose at bay and also making sure that Ella was by her side, she went down the path towards the bush cover and towards an unknown fate. As she walked, her heart pounded relentlessly, sending heavy vibrations through her body. She was sure he could hear it too. She was scared, but she never stopped looking for a way out. Another hiker who could help, a familiar path that could take her home. Something, anything. But there was nothing. No one. It was as if this man knew more about the mountain than she did. No, it was as if this was all planned. The bushes eventually cleared, revealing a hidden dirt path with a van parked by it. She understood immediately that she was to get inside, and her fear response took over. She tried to run. Hilton was faster. She tried to fight, but Hilton was stronger. She kicked and bit and punched, but Hilton fought back. But he still hadn't used the knife. Overpowering her once more, he forced her into the back of the van. She yelled and pleaded and banged on the walls of the van, but it was no use. Ella whimpered next to her in the van. Meredith felt the rumble of the engine ripple through her body with a force that rivaled that of her beating heart. She felt the van start, shaking as it made its way down the path. It could have been because of the blood loss, the rush, the stress, or a combination of everything. But soon after getting into the van, Meredith lost consciousness. Meredith awoke tied and gagged in a location that she didn't recognize, a shed or cabin that Hilton had converted into a makeshift camp. Her dog Ella was nowhere to be seen. She had no idea what day it was, but she would be kept here for the next few days. Hilton continued to demand her PIN number, and each time she would give him wrong digits. She did this because she realized that each time he would leave to check. This would buy her some time to figure out how to get free, but it was never enough time. Each time Hilton would return upset and aggressive, and each time she had to fight him off, employing her out-of-practice martial arts skills before giving him another number and promising that this time it was the right one. Did she know that this plan wouldn't work indefinitely? If she knew how long she had left, would she have done it differently? Was it always going to play out the way it did? All unanswerable questions. Meredith's family and friends were alerted to her disappearance on the 2nd of January. They immediately started a search, but didn't recover anything related to her disappearance, only that she had gone for a walk up Blood Mountain. It wasn't until 2 days later on the 4th that they found a clue. They were alerted to a dog that matched the description of Ella that was found wandering through a town in Georgia. The dog had been taken to a shelter and was cared for until the family could arrive for her. This was a town of Cumming, and it was 60 miles away from where Meredith was last seen. At this point, the search for Meredith had reached scary intensity, and people, most notably other hikers, started sharing information about a man that they had seen on the trail that day. The details that they shared about the man made its way into the news. In a promising turn of the situation, a former employer of Gary Hilton recognized him based on the description he saw in the news. He was the one who immediately alerted the police. He gave them all the information they needed to find Gary. He also provided more information on Gary that wouldn't have been known by anyone else. Gary was a drifter who seemed to be prone to drastic changes in personality. At one point, he had used pliers to pull out some of his teeth in order to be seen as scarier to other people. Tracking down this enigmatic character, the police found Gary on the 5th of January cleaning out the back of his van, the same one he'd used to kidnap Meredith. Meredith was not recovered. Gary was arrested and pleaded guilty to killing Meredith and murdering a few other hikers over the course of a year, but the details around them were unknown. Facing the death penalty, Gary agreed to give the police the information they needed to find her in exchange for the chance of the death penalty being taken off the table. But he did say one thing. One chilling thing that no doubt shook the investigators to their core. He said, "The head will be missing." Meredith's body was found buried in the Chattahoochee National Forest in Georgia, close to Blood Mountain. She had been dismembered and decapitated. She was killed on the 4th of January, a day before the police would find Gary Hilton.